Welcome to Paterson's first inaugural World Cafe on Education, hosted today by Paterson Education Association and New Family Foundation. We're here today to discuss some topics related to education and what learning is and what opportunity looks like for our students in our schools.
Good afternoon. I'm Janet McDaniel, and it's just a pleasure to be here with these professionals as we embark on this first inaugural World Cafe on Education. We are blessed to have with us Kaikor, who's a professional in this area, and I can't wait for us to begin.
So, thank you everybody for being here. And usually when we do circle practice, we might have something in the middle. There's no cameras on us, but it's a much more intimate setting, and it's rooted in indigenous practices, whether it's from the motherland or whether it's from here with our indigenous people here, where people come together in a circle and engage in dialogue and discourse around issues or topics that most affect them. It's a participatory approach, meaning that the people who are closest to the problem are the ones who are most likely to be able to solve the problem. We're used to having experts come in all the time and tell us how to do things and what to do and what not to do, especially if you're in brown and black communities where they control a lot of what happens, right? Whether it's our schools, who gets to be hired, what curriculum is being taught, right? We often don't have as much input as we should. And so a participatory approach says it's coming from the ground up. The people who are most marginalized, the people who are most affected by the issues should be the ones to be able to discuss, to identify the problem, to discuss the issue, and also provide solutions to that problem, right? And so as part of check-in too, we spend some time, just kind of introducing ourselves. I don't know everybody, but if you could just tell me briefly your name and what brought you here today. So we'll just kind of go around in a circle. If anybody wants to start.
I'll start. Okay, so I've experienced, my name is Marcella Simidaris. I'm a physical education and health teacher at Dr. Frank Napier Academy, school number 4. I've taken in these activities through NJEA in organizing workshops, and I know it as a tool we can use to kind of harvest our own expertise. So, I thought it would be a great idea to kind of implement it and see how it works, and bring some ideas forward to the Board of Ed, and on a continuing basis using such tools and practices.
I'm Janet McDaniel, and my background is social work. And in that background, we've had group dynamics and we've run groups before, but this is quite different, and it was intriguing to hear about it from Marcella and Kaikor, and we're just fortunate to participate with them. And I can't wait, again, like I said earlier, I want to see how we can begin to attack this issue of education and being marginalized, if you will, in the city of Paterson, and what we can do to harvest some energy from those people who are affected.
Hello, my name is Al Moody, and I'm here. I'm just very interested in the positive development of our young people, and education is probably one of the most positive things that can be developed, So I'm interested to know more ways and how do we get that, and what we can do to assist with the positive development of our young.
Yes. Good afternoon. My name is Kimada Moody. I am currently a retired teacher from the Paterson Public School District. I taught first grade for 16 years. And I'm here because I know how paramount education is for our development, and especially for our young people to have a better quality of life. I'm just concerned that a lot of parents are not as involved in their education on the local level as they should be. And we need to find a coalition or some solutions to get more parents active and participatory in that process.
Hi, my name is Atif Johnson. I also work in the school district. Also, I work at school number 2, work with kids with behavior problems. Prior to that, I worked with Mr. Moody's son at a school with kids with behavior problems, which brought me to this point of coming here and seeing what's going to happen. So hopefully some things positive with dealing with that particular phenomenon that we're dealing with in our community. It's a big thing, being that I have children of my own, which I have the last one that's a freshman now, you know, so I've been through the whole system. I've been a single father for 10 years. I have 4 boys and 1 girl, you know, and one of my sons is leaving tomorrow for school. He's going to one of the top JUCOs in the country out in Kansas to continue on with his plight of playing basketball. But out of all of his siblings, he was the one who had a lot of problems as far as learning disability with dealing with his reading. So I see there's a big problem with dealing with those types of issues with children who need those types of things to facilitate so they can move forward to the next part of their life. And that's where we stagnate as far as when our children are going to these top institutions to play sports. We're behind in that factor as far as dealing with SATs and all of the other things that come along with that. So I'm coming here to see how I can help in some development in any way. Being that I still deal with the children, I'm in the streets talking to a lot of the kids. You'd be surprised how many youth in our town who have came through our program that are dead. Over 50, 60 kids I know personally, funerals. And I'm like a big family because most of the people here I know in the town. So that affects me on a daily basis. When those kids die, it's like I die because I knew a lot of them when they were children. And a lot of the kids out here now that's in the streets were kids who 9 out of 10 were special ed that just got pushed through the cracks. So now you see the results of that it went from one place to the streets. So I'm here to see what I can do to help. And I'm active out there with the youth. I talk with them, see what's going on in their mind. But a lot of them are very disenchanted, mad, upset, and very emotional. So I have to be patient in dealing with the issues that they're dealing with. And being again that I'm from here, I understand. That's another thing. We have to go out and find out what's going on in their mind. What slang are they using? You have to know all these things so you can get to them. Other than that, they're going to look at you and say, you're just coming to preach, you know. So these are the things that I'm dealing with on a daily basis. So I'm not here to sugarcoat anything. I have one of my sons now that's in the system. Been here 7 years. You know, Mr. Moody's like family to me. He knows all my children since they've been born, every single one. They call him Uncle Moody. That's how close I am with his family. And you know, I was just showing him a picture of my son, and he told me to tell Mr. Moody that he's okay. You know, he had to go to that system and become a grown man and understand the things that me and Mr. Moody were telling him. You know, so now he understands all that. He said, Dad, I'm 27 years old now. So actually, I don't really want to come back to Paterson, Dad. I want to be part of that onslaught. I don't want to get involved in any of that anymore. He said, you know, being that he went in there when he was young, he goes to college in there. So Rutgers come in there and teach. So he's going to follow that up after he gets out of there, you know. This guy speaks 6 languages. Everybody in the town know him, every race, because I make sure that my kids get along with everybody. So pretty much everybody knows me or knows my children. So my other son is going through some things also because of the peer pressure. It's not like it was when we were young, where you had the village. You know, the village is not there anymore. This is the big problem. So we can have all the talks in the world. If we don't get that piece together, we're just going to be like the dog chasing his tail. That's the big problem in the village. That I know your children know my children, that we're close. You're not going to do this, you're not going to do this. A very big problem with disrespect. And it's going all the way down to the kindergarten level now. or disrespect. You know, you talk with the parent coming there wanting to curse you out and blaming you for a lot of the issues that should be dealt with at home. But then when you have a lot of them who are young themselves raising children and not ready for that phenomenon, like I always tell kids, you're grown, I'm a grown up. It's a big difference. Grown up meaning you have got to the level where you have matured to understand how to make proper decisions in your life so that you can move forward. You know, so now I've been burnt out for the last 2 years with my younger two, but now I have to regroup because I have, like I said, I have one young one left. He's going to be going to Panther this year. He's going to be a freshman. So now my job is to that end now, hoping that he get the things he need and understand what he from the experiences from his brothers and sisters, and from what you pretty much see out here. You can't even go out to play basketball anymore like you used to. He was playing last week. As soon as he left, his friend got shot. As soon as he left, and it wasn't for him. He was just happened to be standing there, you know. And this is why my sister called me off the hook. Where's your son? Where's your son? Where's your son? All the time, always calling, because you don't want to get that call that your child is one of the ones who have got shot or killed. Tired of going to funerals. I don't want to go to no more funerals.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for sharing.
I'm Chris Faber Muhammad. I'm an educator here in Paterson. I teach at Paterson Public School number 5, art teacher there. And I've been teaching at Paterson for about 17 years. And I also direct an after-school program in several of the schools here in Paterson. I'm here because education is my passion. And I'm here because I love world cafes. I love the concept, and I'm just here to participate and impart and to learn as a lifelong learner.
Thanks.
My name is Jasmine Cabrera. I'm a graduate from Dr. Napier Academy, and I am here on behalf of the students of my community.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Rose Harris. I'm the mother of Jasmine Cawertham. I'm also a mother of 6 children, 6 grands, and I just hope and pray that Paterson could get better than what it is at this time at present.
Hi, my name is Errol Carr. I'm a former commissioner in Paterson Board of Education. I am here because whenever the word education is mentioned, it intrigues me. And I, like every one of us here, I'm in search of solutions to the issues of how best we are able to educate our children here in Paterson. I know we face many challenges, but I truly believe that if we all commit ourselves to the purpose of solving this issue, we can do it. It's about making sure that the next generation get what they ought to get. You know, sometimes we tend to deal with issues as they face us on a personal level. But sometimes we need to extend ourselves, look at it from a communal point of view, realize that, listen, this is a village, and what affects one affects the other one. I live in Paterson, and I cannot tell anybody that because I live on the east side of town, what happens on the north side of town doesn't affect me. It does affect me. So I would like to make sure that our children here in Paterson get the best quality education. So I'm here simply to take in this discussion and to make whatever contribution I can make to advance the whole process of educating our kids here in Paterson.
Thank you.
My name is Dave Gilmore, and I'm here to absorb whatever discussion, whatever opportunities there are in collaborating to move our community forward. You can call it a village, you can call it a community, call it what you want. We're part of this. And you just can't sit around and not participate in what's going on. I want to be involved. I want to, although my kids are grown, I have 6 grandchildren. They're not currently in this community right now, but I'm here. So I look at the other children and other people's grandchildren as my own as well. I mean, we have to take care of these kids. We have to be responsible to make sure that they become productive citizens. We have to make sure, because sometimes their own family is reluctant or are not less than diligent in terms of providing what it is they need. We got babies raising babies, you know, so we have to be out there and help them and challenge those that are in the system, providing the atmosphere for education, to be accountable for that education, as well as us. And so I just want to participate and help where I can, and that's what I do. I'm looking forward to whatever discussions we're going to have and try to give my input as well. Thank you for inviting me.
My name is Shakur Hodges. I'm not from Paterson, I'm from North, but we have some of the same issues. And I'm here on behalf of Marcella, and I'm also here on behalf of to gather information and get whatever I can out of this meeting, so I could talk to some of the the youth around my way, because I'm concerned about the youth too. Also, I'm not that old, but I'm more advanced than some of the others. So I just want to get some information so that I can use it to also. That's it.
My name is Kevin McDaniel, and I'm one of the founding members of New Family Foundation. I don't have children of my own, but I'm a member of the village that we talked about. I come to Paterson. I no longer live in Paterson, but my parents do, my brother does, and I'm constantly here to continue to be a member of this village. And my understanding is that highly melanated people are and have been under attack for a very long time, putting us in a situation where we really need to get out of a lot of these problems that we've been put into. And in education, in the so-called education system, is part of that attack. And we need to figure out ways to help ourselves. Also using this system and turning it around to our advantage. But in addition to that, I think we need to be educating our people outside of, I don't have to say, their system. So I would like to learn, be here to learn how we can get to that point, how we can really do some real education and not rely on our enemies to educate our people.
That was great, thank you. Some powerful conversations. Before we get into, I'll explain the World Cafe principles, but there's a lot of things that I heard come up, systemic issues that are probably deeply rooted in the history of this country, right? So if we saw what happened last weekend, which is a product of probably miseducation or a mix of miseducation, hatred, deep-rooted history of racism and white supremacy and colonization that has seeped through our very DNA. And so when we think of racism, sometimes we often see it as only that, right? That was probably an extreme version of it, but it's in the curriculum that our students get. It's in the representation of the teachers that they get to see every day. It's in, the overemphasis on everything that, disciplinary practices that are pushing them to the school to prison pipeline. right? So this might, I'm loving and I'm looking forward to whatever it is that comes up out of this conversation and the dialogue. I think too, one of the things that we should keep in mind too is we often look for experts, but the experts are in the room. And so how do we tap into our individual expertise to kind of help reimagine something different, and then see what we can do with this reimagining, right? So when we think of World Cafe, there are 3 principles and 4 agreements and 3 practices. The principles pretty much, 3 principles: leadership rotates, responsibility is shared, and then have a higher purpose. So there's no one leader. You know, when you're having discussion, make sure you're sharing responsibility. If you're over taking that conversation, you might want to think about it and probably take a step back and maybe let other people have a say in that, right? This is probably ordinary conversational methods, but doesn't always translate sometimes. There's always that one person that's got more to say than everybody else, right? So take a step back a little bit and let everyone else have an opportunity to add their input. Most importantly, our students, right? Because oftentimes their voices are the least to be considered, especially when they're the most impacted. And then have a higher purpose. So what we're doing here is not just for show, and it's not just so that we can just have this conversation, but let's think about the broader picture. What do we want to do with this information hereafter, right? How do we want to package it? What do we want to do with it once, because it's not just having conversations, not enough. It's great. It allows us to connect to other people and be in space with other people, but we want to actually possibly do something with this, right? And then the 4 agreements, we want to make sure that stories that are shared here, we want to keep it here, keep it confidential, unless the person is giving you explicit permission to share their story, their individual story. If they say, yeah, you can share my story outside, whatever, that's fine, but we want to honor people's narratives and voices if they're asking you to. We want to listen to each other with compassion. We're going to ask for what we need and offer what we can during the space, so we're taking care of each other. And we agree to pause when needed. So if it's getting heated, and you're not agreeing on something, if you need to pause, it's fine. And then the 3 practices, we want to make sure that we speak with intention, listen with attention, and tend to the well-being of each other. Just taking care of each other during the conversation. Anything I need to explain before we move on to the questions? All right, so we have the first question. Marcel's going to pull up. If you can put it on the board and then read it for us, and then I'll explain the way this is going to work. So there are 3 questions, and there are 3 rounds of conversation. There are 3 different tables, so we want to have 4 to 5 people at a table. Maybe, let's see how many people, 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, yeah. 4 people to a table. And for the first round, you'll engage in conversation around the first question. It'll be 15 minutes of conversation with that group, with the group of people that you're with. There's chart paper in the middle with markers. The markers in the chart paper is there for you to kind of take notes, jot down what you're saying. I often say, if it's not documented, then it didn't happen. All right, so we want to make sure that we're documenting our conversations and the things that we're saying. After that, once the 15 minutes is up, if you find that you've exhausted the time even before the 15 minutes, I'll come around with a Post-it. And you're going to pull out the top 3 points that were made in that conversation and jot it down on the Post-it, and then we'll harvest out. After the harvesting, then we'll rotate to the next question, which means that you'll need to, one person will stay at the table, you choose who that person is, and then everyone else will move around to a different table, so that you're talking to other people and not with the same people that you were when you started the conversation. The idea is that you're hearing other voices and you're hearing other perspectives during this time. All right, you want to read the question?
Okay, so question number 1. Think back to your favorite learning environment. How would you describe this learning? How would you describe this learning environment?
So this is our lead-in question. We want to think back to your favorite learning environment. And when I say learning environment, it's not just a formal schooling, right? So think back, what were those qualities? How would you describe that? right, learning environment. It'll build up. So I'm looking at faces and you're saying, but the question, it builds up to, and we'll see how it's going to build up. When you think about that favorite learning environment that you had growing up, or even now as an adult or whatever it is, what were the qualities, how would you describe that learning environment? And even the, maybe even the person that, or the people that were even in that environment too as well, okay? What were the qualities? What were the, what did you learn even? You know, yep, so any questions before we? No, okay. So you can go off to a table. It'll take about 15 or so minutes to discuss that question. Think about the qualities of that learning environment. The ideas that we're building up to what we want to envision learning for our children in Paterson eventually, okay?
How do you want to start?
If you don't mind, I'll go first. Well, my favorite learning environment was the military. I had a wealth of knowledge imparted in my development from the military. Structure, you know, learning how to take orders, learning how to give orders. You learn how to take them before you give them. Getting along with people, and just, you know, knowing how to build and meet their expectations. You know, in leadership, I was a platoon sergeant as well. So, you know, I really found that a very enriching part of my development, being in the military.
I was honest when I said I couldn't really remember much, but I reflected back to my grandfather, who probably had maybe a second grade education, but he had a career, if you will, that was a coveted position in our southern town, working at the Reynolds Metal Company. But he always had a lot of confidence in whatever I did, whether it was rubbing something that was hurting him. And what he taught me from that was that I had compassion and that I could provide healing and comfort to people. And it probably led to my becoming a social worker in terms of the kinds of services I provided. So it was a non-traditional learning environment, but it certainly taught and helped to develop character and a sense of confidence in it.
I had to apply all the learning that I had received, and I had to identify a problem with my students, and I had to come up with a solution to that problem. And the problem was the behavior of some of the students. And I had to just reflect and think, well, where is this coming from? How can I include parents in helping me to define the problem and come up with a solution? So I learned to work with my parents, survey my parents, read the surveys. I also learned to document the students' behavior in a quantitative way, the occurrences of different types of behavior and what precipitated that to come up with a solution. So yeah, that was the best.
What made it your favorite?
Because I was given the task of finding a problem and then coming up with a solution myself. That really worked because I had to quantify the solution as well.
Was the fact that it was something that we were going to apply and use to solve a problem. So it was like you had to, you know what I'm saying? You had to learn, you had to know your stuff. You know what I'm saying? So that's what made it. Not that I'm really supposed to be participating right now, but just to kind of like give you an idea. But this is not, there's no right or wrong answer. It's just for you to think back into a moment in time where you really felt like you learned a skill or developed a skill, and what was that environment like that made that, you know, develop? Because we don't always develop those skills.
So it's social environment, you learn it through?
Well, I think what it was for me was the fact that the environment was that we were actually going to take the work and use it to solve a problem. That was the environment. not that so much as the environment, but that was the culture of
the culture of
like you got to know this stuff, you got to understand the history, you got to understand the other side, you know what I'm saying? So how are you going to combat it if you don't understand it? So because you knew how to do that and have such purpose behind it, that's what I mean. I guess maybe passion too. That's passion as well, you know what I'm saying? So that's what I'm saying. It's nothing. This is just talking, being people, you know what I'm saying? I know it's kind of new. It takes a little getting used to. But I just know it's cool. So, do you remember anything, Shakur? Like a moment where it was like the learning really like you felt like you developed something, whether it was knowledge, whether it was a skill, and what made that, manifest or made you successful. You know what I'm saying? That's like the point, to think like that on that. I'm gonna leave you.
Like say what you, what you, right, and then you just, she just right like this. But I go. I mean, a good learning environment for me was home. Also, my mother, she taught me, to be well respectful, and like she always made me do little problems and read books and anything that involved me learning more on my off time. Like she made sure that that I did that, or I was practicing. Gave me a lot of practice. Like she'll write a bunch of math problems on one page and on another page and tell me to do it, and then I'll hand it to her. And if it's not right, I gotta do it over again. Things like that. So that's one that I could say. That was a good learning environment for me.
We have to first identify appropriate behavior. But appropriate behavior, you have to all the teachers have to get together and come up with a list of appropriate behavior. The administrators have to get together, come up with their list of appropriate behavior for classroom. The parents have to come up with a list of appropriate behavior. And then the community, the ministers, everybody, all these sections have to identify appropriate behavior for classroom. You put them all together and you pick out those behaviors that are common on each one, and you pull those out only. And then that list becomes appropriate behavior. That's what you sell out to the community. Everybody deal with kids and able to tell them, and identify what appropriate behavior is. So if you're not exhibiting this type of behavior, and every segment of the community know what it is, then you're not.
I just want to kind of bring us back to the question in some kind of way. So what would you say was your favorite learning environment, whether it's as an adult, whether it's in middle school? Because you were in behavior, so I wasn't sure. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Yeah, we each kind of jot down what our favorite was, and then we were going into the fact that to get that kind of situation in the school system, the barrier, that's where we moved over to a different idea.
Oh, okay.
The barrier was the behavior issue.
Okay. So, so what were the favorite environments?
Mine was, it was about my parents giving me the kind of nurturing that I needed to enjoy learning, and gave one of the main examples was my father inadvertently maybe, or he might have had it in his mind as a plan, when I would bring artwork my drawings to him, he would encourage me by his excitement, his liking what he was seeing, and saying to me that I was doing such a good job, and I was explaining that several years later I found some of those pieces of art and I thought, this is really not good at all. but because of the way he
building your
said,
self-esteem.
wow, this is something. Yeah,
Yeah.
and I felt like it was that love that made me want to do better and keep showing him.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's when we kind of moved on to about
Yeah.
how, we need teachers who do that. But if you're in in a school system where there are a lot of people who are misbehaving, it's very difficult to even get to that point because several people are just out of whack. So I know we moved a little bit away, but each of us shared our idea about our favorite learning environment. Mr. Moody was saying his favorite learning environment is when he was alone, thinking to himself. And I think that's good too because it's quiet time. It's even having the space of doing that. And if you're missing some of the needs, you might not get to a point where you can sit down alone and think and read or contemplate. You need to eat food. You need to be drinking clean water. You need to be having the basic needs. You need to not be afraid that you're not going to get fed or your parents are going to abuse you or the community is going to be threatening to you.
Yeah, well,
And
that's trauma,
that's
right?
trauma.
And I think even speaking about the behavior, that when I was in the classroom, I would always say, like, every form of behavior is a form of communication, right? And it was always taught that we should already assume that people are coming in with walking trauma, right? Whether they're experiencing cultural trauma, we also know through DNA, epigenetics, there's also historical trauma, right, that passes through and we also are reacting to that, right, sometimes. And for us, in our communities, we're hit with so much violence back to back, right, that we don't even get time to process that trauma sometimes, and then it manifests in the classrooms, right? And for me, I had to figure out, how do I work around this in a nurturing way, back to the nurturing and the love, because I'm understanding there's some other issues that, for the most part, because of the societal issues that are happening, it's out of my physical control, but what can I do to create a space so that I'm nurturing the learning and the growth of all the students? So yeah, that's an interesting point that you made about all those issues that are coming. All those issues.
I like what you said though. Behavior is a form of communication.
A form of communication.
And we sometimes just focus on when you need to be punished because that's how the American system is. You did something bad, we're just going to punish you.
Yep.
Rather than educate you, rather than rehabilitate you, rather than make you a better person who now can contribute to the group. But that's why I like that. We need to look at, if those students are coming in acting out, they're saying something. They're saying, I've been abused at home. I'm missing the stuff, the nutrients that I need, actual sustenance that I need with food, the love I need. I think a lot of times these young parents or older lack the ability to show love. I don't think everybody understands how do you demonstrate love, right? They might think, well, I got these kids, I'm on Section 8, they got a place to stay. That's not enough. Sometimes parents, and I got to say this, a lot of parents, our folks, and I know people are going to seriously disagree with me, but I've been saying this for a long time. A lot of parents think that when someone is misbehaving, the way to deal with that is to beat them. Start beating them up as quickly as you possibly can. Knock them upside the head. Violence. We're teaching violence. So, but the only thing that they're learning is, okay, violence is the solution. That's the answer. So when I'm bringing them in the community and there's a problem there, I'm going to be violent. I think that the solution, even though corporal punishment may have its place, I'm not saying to completely throw it out. I'm saying that shouldn't be the first line of response. It should be, how do I show love? How do I encourage? How do I say, here's the things you've been doing really well, and I'm proud of you for that. And I love you, I embrace you because of that. And fathers need to do this. And I think, honestly, black fathers lack this ability because they think, I'm giving you a shelter. And I'm not chastising fathers or parents who do this. I'm saying we all need to learn a better way. Because all the time when people say, that kid is messing up, beat him quick. I say, you know what? We've been beating them quick for centuries, and we're still in this bad situation. So I think
one of the reasons we don't
Exactly. That's the big problem.
because there's really a lot.
But trust is not given, trust is earned.
Exactly.
But we also tend to reject people without there being cause. In other words, I'm connected to Chris You don't connect, you don't trust Chris, therefore you can't trust me. So we tend to group people together instead of finding out what those persons are.
Time, I'm going to come around with Post-its.
Trust is
And what you're to do is, as a group,
You talked about
to pull out, we had some really great conversations. I've been moving around to different groups. The top 3 points that you would like to highlight that came out of that conversation, and you're going to put 1 point on each different Post-it. All right?
It ain't gonna work
You do
because
a
it's
one
not
on
set
each.
up for us to use
Oh, you
any
have
of those
trust on
things
one and then-
to be
Oh,
successful
okay,
in
okay.
fact. It's not. That's part of the conspiracy. You're not gonna be able to do it that way unless you have your own institutions.
Well, I think educator, I myself can do in my own classroom. You yourself can implement this within the range of the classroom you work in. But or a principal, if a principal was here, they could sort of design the expectations of their staff and try to reinforce that. You know, if they're bringing that into a team. So
I've seen a principal.
Certain levels, I think is possible. So that's why I'm saying me going back into my classroom. How can I take some of this?
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying, and,
Yeah.
and bring it into my
I
individual.
Everything I did in the classroom was non-traditional, which the kids were not used to dealing with. Letting them know to identify who they are, because most of them don't know who they are. They don't have knowledge of self. So that's what I did. I didn't teach what they teach.
That's what I say. Whom you're taught respect.
So what like you want to explore why was it easier to learn at home? You know what I'm saying?
No, it wasn't easier to learn. I wouldn't say it was easier to learn at home, but it helped me for when I went to, like when I left from when I left home, and the
Because it was where your values were instilled.
Yes, your value system is developed at home.
So in about a minute, the buzzer's going to go off, and just choose one person to share out.
What do we say value system is what?
It's developed at home. It's developed.
By people you love, right?
Yeah.
That's what makes it probably a little bit more
It's not
easier.
that.
Right?
I don't think it's a
By
lot.
people you're close to.
You could say that.
I wouldn't say that people.
Well,
I'm trying to sort it
That's
out.
what you think? By people you're close to.
No, really, but you could say that.
So what would you say? Home makes it easier for you to learn.
It makes it easier
Because they're close to you. Because you those are people that you have relationships with.
Yes.
Close relationships.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Okay. Respect values is developed with people you are close to. Okay.
All right, so the buzzer's about to go off in a few.
That's one point. And then what was that one? You gotta write down that one. Close to.
I think we need to define that.
What was in the environment that made it easy for you to learn? You know, you're thinking back to a time where it was
Look, language, you learn it through home, you learn it through general environment. So
general, not general environment, day-to-day activities,
day-to-day activity.
Favorite learning experiences, we narrowed to 3. One is nurturing love and encouragement. And one person in our group talked about how he had a particular talent and the parents nurtured and encouraged and supported that talent. The second one was nurture learning about yourself internally as a person, where opportunities should be provided for that person to be introspective, to have some quiet time, and to really self-reflect. Okay. And the last one was finding a way to identify a problem in the learning and ways to solve that problem with action and quantifying the problem and the solution.
So it's like self-driven by you, the individual, not someone telling you this is the problem.
Right.
Great, thank you. I'll take it.
3 started with respect. It was, that led to trust and structure. To explain, respect means that we're mindful of our elders, because some of us are reflecting back on times when we learned from our grandparents. and that being our favorite time of learning. Trust, you have to have trust with it in whatever you do, but people earn trust. It's not naturally given. And structure is, I took that from my military experience as being one of my favorite times of learning, because I learned so much. I don't know what else to say, but relationships, I talked about. That's basically it, short and sweet.
Thank you. Anyone else want to add?
Our 3 points were, we learned through social spaces, the things that we do on a social basis. We learn culture, we learn social mores, we learn our politics, we learn religion through our social mores. We also look at the earliest learning institution, that's the home. Most of what we know in terms of what's wrong from what's right was developed at that level. Your parents tells you, listen, this is what's right, this is what's wrong, and we internalize all of those instructions. And it carries over to when we leave home and go to school, socializing on a different level. We also learn through our day-to-day activities, and whether you believe it or not, there's a certain amount of influence that is generated from our day-to-day interaction with each other. We might not be aware of it, but it does happen. So we learn by listening to our folks, by interacting with our folks. So these are the 3 areas that we came up with at this time.
Question number 2. What impact has the emphasis on constantly measuring learning had on our schools, classrooms, communities, and individuals?
Okay. What impact has the emphasis on constantly measuring learning had on our schools, classrooms, communities, and individuals? So, what impact has it had? Whether it's a
Okay. I see that it's constantly causing a change in models. Educational models, educational initiatives, even testing, even the way that the students are tested. It's like it's a constant new thing. Yeah, there's always something new, but there's no improvement in the outcomes. You know, if you follow little or no improvement. Follow the years of staff achievement and closing the gap. Should really no change. More money being thrown, spent at the problem, but still the results that they're saying that you're looking for.
So from what you're saying, Chris, the focus is in the wrong place because you're constantly measuring the impact, but you're not really measuring outcomes. You're always looking to reach to
measuring outcomes.
You're measuring
outcomes. But that's not. It's not creating a positive impact just by measuring the outcome.
But when you measure the outcome, that's not where it ends. You look at the outcome and say, well, if it's a negative outcome, as opposed to a positive outcome, you try to backfill so that you can move from where it's at to where you
Right,
want.
that's why I said that there's all these new models, new initiatives as a result of measuring the outcome. But still, no change. And I think it's partly because they don't give the new model or the new initiative time to even create change before there's a new one coming in.
We find teachers are teaching to the test as opposed to teaching, that subject matter thoroughly, and so it's not complete. We're getting half. We're not getting the whole education. Yeah, the whole concept. We've been getting the information that's regarding the particular test that's coming up.
So in other words, what they're doing is teaching them to regurgitate information that's been taught to them repetitively.
Right, and not teaching.
And not getting the concept of the subject matter.
Preparing the kid to then take off, that education, taking them off because, he's educated only to a small segment of the industry. I think that's one of the impacts. Another impact, I believe, is that following this mode, turning the students off. Not interested. They're interested in something that they're not interested in educating, so you're taking them away from the school. So we got a lot more kids just really not caring about what happened in the classroom.
I think that you can also attribute a lot of the kids not being able to learn is because they get stressed out on having to make the grade.
That's part of it.
You can have applied pressure either by peers or from home. Why didn't you get an A? Why didn't you get a B? You got a D. You're on punishment. You're this or that. Go in the room, read a book as a punishment.
Oh, it's a punishment, yeah.
Yeah, I've seen that.
Yeah. It should be enjoyment, right?
And it should be a yearning to learn.
Yeah.
But not be punished for not, because you didn't read fast enough or retain enough or whatever.
Let my son take the test. I've said it's not going to help him. It's not going to help him deal with daily life. It doesn't have anything to do with that.
All it is
critical thinking, critical analysis.
It's spitting it back out. What they want, they want you to memorize facts and spit it back out on a piece of paper instead of, really truly learning those skills.
Nothing's in depth anymore.
Yeah. In depth.
So what impact has that had on the community? We are graduating young people with degrees who don't know how to apply skills, who don't have any technical knowledge. So they are fulfilling the requirement of the test, but they have no knowledge base of how to apply it, and no ability to apply it.
And that becomes our challenge for our children, not only when they go to high school, but then trying to go to college. And then they got to take all of the substandard courses for a year to get. That's what happened with my son. Last year he sat out, Clifford. He sat out last year. So the whole year he just stayed. Now he's leaving. Like I said, he's going to Kansas tomorrow, to one of the top pupils in the country. But he had to sit out the whole year. Because they don't tell you a lot of these players that if you don't meet those requirements, you're going to miss a whole year. You're not going to make it. So he had to do that based on what the problem he has with his reading disability.
Yes.
But that guy worked harder than anybody I ever met in my life. So when anybody asks me who my favorite player is in person, is that guy. Because I know what he's dealing with.
Yes.
Trying to, pass classes. Exactly. Up and late at night, this guy in there with the light on, with flashlight, trying to get it. Because he knows he has a disability. Mm-hmm. One teacher brought it out of him because he wouldn't talk. He was an introvert. He wouldn't talk in front of people. When they won the state championship, they didn't interview him really. I said, how did you do the other ones? He said, I already would write it down so that I would be prepared. Other than that, he wouldn't be able to do it. He's gotten a lot better. And then going away to Missouri the first time helped him. And now he came back more mature, understanding what's necessary to do what he needs. And based on what you just said, we're lacking in that skill. So now the kids got to take remedial courses to get caught up. So the whole year they're not going to play. Because one school wanted them, they said, look, we're not going to lie to you. We're just going to let you play basketball. You can come to to a prep school. That's all a gimmick. If you're one of the top players, they're just gonna let you pass. You're not gonna do no work.
I don't know. I remember when I graduated from Kennedy, I took college prep courses. I don't even know if they have college prep courses anymore in the curriculum.
I don't think so.
I'm not
some
sure.
Of the schools do.
Some of the schools do.
I know. I'm thinking about thinking about tech.
Okay, yeah.
I know that their students can graduate and take courses and go on and be advanced. I have a coworker whose son has been going to Ramapo for 3 years for the summer program, and she just found out that none of that will transfer to colleges forever. As opposed to the way it used to be. But getting back to how it impacts on the community. So I said we're graduating students who are not able to take jobs, get jobs. How does that impact on our community? We have a loss of jobs. We have no jobs. We have no income. So it's a cycle. We are graduating the students because they're teaching to the test, they learn how to take the test, they get a degree, they cannot get a job, they cannot support their families, they cannot get into college. So it's a vicious cycle.
Part of the conspiracy.
The test is what has become the most important thing rather than actual learning and the person developing
and based
themselves.
like what she said earlier, which I already know, it's based on dollars and cents. So if we don't do well on that, then Paterson's not going to be advocating that money. They're not going to send the money here. So that's what it's based on in our community, not the other towns. It's communities like the urban towns.
Yeah, like Paterson,
based
Newark,
on that.
Jersey City,
Well, because
Camden.
those other towns are getting the funding anyway.
They're not getting the special funding. They're getting funded
Yeah, but they're not
because
getting that
every
special
student
funding.
has
That's
to
what it's
get a
based on
certain amount of
that.
money.
They're based on really learning. So you see it, they cramming with the kids, just memorizing things, not to have their own like input, and their own input and understanding.
And you know, a 100 level course is different than the 800 level courses that we take in doctoral school, but it's still a measurement for that place in that field. And I think it is, you know, can the person meet these expectations at this moment?
See, for me, it killed me at that point. My physics teacher, he said, he was testing me to see if you're ready for physics. So he went to the board, he said, okay, tell me what's 1 plus 1? 2. He said, okay, fine. Now, when you can prove to me that 1 plus 1 equals maybe 1.5, or maybe 3, now you're ready for physics.
And people are taking physics that makes sense. You say, okay.
Whoa! I can't make 1 plus 1 equal nothing but 2.
Yeah.
You know, but he then went on to say, look, take 1 apple and 1 apple, right? All right, I take this 1 apple and I break it down, and you got 357,000 pieces, parts, or whatever it's called to it, right? This other apple got 352.
Yeah.
It's not the same. So which one is 1? You know, so numbers, so you got to be ready for that. You know, numbers, 1 and 1 is not necessarily 2. And so, oh man, so all right.
So it's not numbers, it's concepts.
That made me.
Concepts, it is concepts.
It's concepts.
Yes, that made me.
And how do you come to that learning? How do you come to that determination and understanding?
Well, everybody learns at different rates, and their absorption, to be able to absorb the concept.
And that goes back, can we accurately measure that? Can we actually quantify a person as, you're an A student, you're a B student, even though they may not have fully captured the concept? I don't know.
I would think the answer is no. Because we all measure differently. We all absorb differently.
But you still get there. It's kind of like if we're going to Home Depot. Home Depot is in a fixed place, but there's so many different ways to get there. So even though some of us are walking, some of us are on bicycles, some of us are, you know, in a car, the Home Depot is in a fixed location. And so we're measuring whether or not we arrived at the fixed location, and the way of getting there are multitudinous. We don't have to We don't have to be the same.
When you
on
say
that
learning is a fixed, like,
The
is it-
measurement
the measurement.
is fixed, and how you get there, I think, is different.
Okay.
Now, since you're speaking on that, when it comes to African Americans, our measurement of thinking have been a little distorted here. And the reason why I share that, because if this is dealing with education, our education was all Europeanized. So we see it from a European point of view. Now, I said something about my learning experience in my environment. I can remember the 60s and the 70s, and this brother and a few other brothers was taking us in another cultural understanding. And with that cultural understanding, it gave us an awareness of finding out who we are so we can deal with the environment that we're in. One thing I want to mention, back then, the respectability was much stronger then than it is now. Why? Because of the knowledge factor. The knowledge factor of our children now is at a point now where it's decreasing the concern for respect. And we need to work on that. Knowledge can do two things. And I shared this with Al a long time ago. It can build you up to be a better person, or it can destroy you to be the worst person on the planet.
I remember when I first saw Hidden Figures, I remember saying, God, like, how come we didn't know about this? Like,
Right.
why did I know
Right.
that these black
Think
women
about that.
were the ones
Think
who got us
about
to
that.
space,
Think
right?
about that. But see,
You know, because that,
hidden
if I knew
information.
that, you know, maybe if I was younger,
Thank
maybe I
you.
wouldn't have even saw myself as a scientist.
Yeah, we were talking about that this morning.
Can I share another thing with you? Do you think it was their job to give us our knowledge after bringing us here?
Oh.
No.
They had listen.
They made sure they killed us if we tried to learn.
Thank you. This system is geared to either tear us down or make us worthless.
So we have to create something different.
I'm grateful for this brother and Mincy and all them other brothers.
Last effective instruction. Last instruction. Part of my life in Ghana, being educated. So the education system was the British, very strict, very, you know, authoritative, very totalitarian type. But the way I teach is completely opposite from that. So it's amazing to even, you know, yeah. And the overemphasis on testing, like we had the O levels, we had the A levels, we had all these, we had the studies.
You say O levels and A levels. I understand. I don't think they understand.
Oh, where are you from?
Jamaica.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's a
British
system.
British
Yeah,
system.
It's O levels.
Yep.
O levels. I understand what you're
Yeah,
talking about. Yeah, O levels is ordinary.
It's a standardized test.
System of test. So you go to high school, you do 4 years. When you're in fourth form, then you start doing O levels. So they test you. You don't get tested until you reach fourth form.
Yeah.
Then you have to, they test you on what you did in first form, second form, third form, and fourth form. Because education is building block. So you learn first form work, they don't test you. They don't test your second form. Because every form is hinged on the next form.
Okay, I understand that.
And it's a test. So you do some people do 6 subjects.
Have the goal to key in on failure. I paraphrased you. And then one failure of measuring is teachers teaching to the test versus teaching a holistic child, and it turns the students off to education. I paraphrased you. And here it says students are stressed out on having to make the grade, i.e. read as a punishment. And then I was going to write something else, but I got distracted. So are there 3 here that we should put on Post-its?
To the question.
Yes. Which 3 of these things would you like to put up?
like that one right there.
This one.
I like that one.
She says one failure of measuring is teachers teaching to the test versus teaching a holistic child, and it turns the student off to education. Do you all
That's a
agree?
good
That's a good one. That's a good one. They going along with
Shorten it.
SATs and parts and all that, right? Yeah. All right.
That shorten it?
There was another one she read up here too. That caught
Which
my
one do you
attention.
like?
There was a few things you said up here.
Here, you can want to find it and write it down maybe?
Got to see this.
So we can get, oh, all right, maybe we can't do it that way.
Can you read that and read this?
It says high emphasis on measuring isn't fair. Some things are not measurable and tests have the goal to key in on failure. One failure of measuring.
Nah, let me think about that failure piece, because I know that English language is a broken language. By it being a broken language, and we take on that, we don't get the full potential that we're supposed to be. We get a broken potential, broken perspective. Because we dealing with mindsets here when we come to knowledge. We dealing with mindsets here. We ain't dealing with no we dealing with strict mindset here. Perception is important, how you see yourself.
I want to keep this.
You see yourself from the one point, you in trouble.
Oh, maybe that's a different point. Teaching, measuring turns students off to learning. That's, you like
If they
that?
don't meet their expectations, yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
A lot of kids are not good test takers. They could be just as smart as the next person, but they freeze up on taking the test. They get stressed out.
And for overkill, we had constant change in education, models, type of tests, etc., with little or no improvement with achievement. 2, we had lesson structure time, stress/frustration. And for that one, we had burden of grading statistical data to measure the learning is placed on the classroom teacher. Decreases focus and emphasis on achievement. Depth of concept in curriculum is diminished. Teacher a better judgment of child's content. Part of assessment should include teacher's judgment. And 3, we had takes away from instruction time / waste. Testing is stressful for students. Part of test is not in curriculum, and students get lost and confused.
Okay, so can I have the post-it? Okay. So it was overkill. What is it?
Stress / frustration.
You said stress, last, frustration. And then the other one was?
What's the last one?
Takes away instruction.
Oh, it takes away time from the instructional time.
No art.
All right, next, anyone? Group? Yep.
All right, so we have teaching to the test limits learning. Standardized testing restricts the ability to evaluate students' capacity, i.e. creativity and performance. And it also may produce students who are able to pass tests but lack the ability to obtain a job or be productive members of society.
Wow. Powerful. Yeah. Thank you.
One failure of measuring is teaching to the test versus teaching the holistic child. And high emphasis on measuring isn't fair. Some things are not measurable, and tests have the goal to key in on failure. And measuring may turn students off to learning. Some students don't test well.
Thank you. All right, great, powerful responses. And some powerful conversations happening too as well. So our last question, which I want us to think about as we're building up. So this question we started with our favorite learning environment. Here we're looking at what impact does measuring have on learning, and it appears that it limits, I'm seeing restricts, I'm seeing words like it kind of destabilizes, it produces students who are not capable of living full productive lives but can pass the test. A lot of emphasis on it. maybe when we come back to the circle, I'll even talk a little bit about how we even got to this point where we're having so many tests, because it wasn't like that. How many of you remember having a test every single year of your life from 3rd grade on? From 3rd grade? Because I'm much younger than you. I know we didn't start testing like that until 2001. Like I remember taking one test in 4th grade, one that was 8th, and I think, yeah. So, yeah. I mean, we're thinking about our schools being more humanizing places. How can we create more humanizing schools and classrooms for our students and communities? And now I want to think about what we envision for our schools that are going to be places that are going to have our students, their humanity reaffirmed, right? And thinking about possibly what we see happening now and what can be different, right? So what are we seeing happening now in our schools, and then what can be different? Does that make sense or no? Am I clear? I'm seeing some confused faces. You, I'm making sense?
To humanize the schools. Man,
That's a heavy one.
I got something for it.
And then they have, no, NJS.
No, they have NJS. They have science.
Except for science.
Science.
Right. But then you have the STARS assessment that they do quite frequently, I think, once at the end of the unit.
Is that required, or is that something to place you in a different
They use it, I believe they use it for track, and they use it because I see classrooms that are designed according to scores on STARS, but they say they don't. But basically, that's just, they're monitoring the growth.
So it's not required by the state, but some districts will require some tests. So Paterson requires the STAR, and then they also require like some benchmark, and then they have the SGOs,
and then
which are used to measure the teachers' evaluation. So they have those tests. They have the test that's mandated by the state. They have the test that's mandated by the district, and then also grade level.
SGOs is like a test?
It's a test. It's an assessment.
Well, it can, like mine is, for my SGOs, I use rubrics, I use performance assessments, but like I was explaining before, most of the teachers don't know that they have that ability. They think they have to use the common assessment through the district, unless you know that you can, use your voice and try to advocate for something, Most people will say you don't have that choice, or you do. Your SGO is supposed to be developed by you and your administrator together. It's not supposed to be dictated by your administrator. But in Paterson, some people do feel like they're required to use certain tests for their SGOs. But if you know the truth and you're willing to fight for it, you know what I'm saying? You can choose other types of things.
Are we clear about what we're supposed to do? I guess given the two things we did already, the kinds of learning environments we found to be, I'll say, humanizing, because we like them. And then given the exercise we did about testing, and now how to make the schools, how to create more humanizing schools. What do you think?
Well, the present structure that we have in terms of school, it's about creating labor for industry. So what we have done in terms of our educational system, we remove creativity from the classroom.
So how do we reinstall creativity? Is it through the humanities, having more arts?
Having more arts and allow kids more room for self-expression. We are born with a certain level of creativity in us, and given the opportunity, it will come out. But when you go to a classroom, the teacher says, this is what we will learn today, and this is how you will learn it today. So the students have no room inside the classroom but to say, well, okay, Mr. Moody is the boss. You're the teacher. You instruct me. And that's all there is to it. The teacher doesn't give the room for the child to come out and question the authority of that teacher or anything of the sort. So what you find, you have kids come up, they're not grasping, they become confused and frustrated because they're saying they're not getting it. And sometimes they're made to believe that they're dumb because they're not getting it.
Okay, let me jump in now, because even this exercise today, it's the World Cafe, and it revolves around interaction from others. But let's face it, no one came here without something in mind. The 3 questions were already determined. That's the concept. Well, we come up with our own ideas. There was a structure already presented. And if I were to go into anything where there was not some degree of structure, it could just go anywhere. There'd be no element of control. So we're not implying that teachers shouldn't have a plan.
No, that's not what I'm implying. And let's get it.
All right, I want to make
you have a way of doing math, all right, and you're instructing me your way of doing that. But if I tell you, there is another way in which I can come up with the same answer as you do, you discount my way. So you don't allow for that.
For the creativity piece. So structure is still important because we talked about.
You have to have a structure, but you have to allow for creative expression.
For instance, I think when I learned how to do subtraction, when you have the number, let's say the big number is, the little number is on top, so I want to take 7 from 3. So I have 33 and I have to take 7 from it. We used to have to borrow from here. Anybody ever heard of that concept? Borrow from this and there. But there's another way where you could just automatically say to yourself, instead of saying I'm borrowing from there, it's the same concept. You're adding 10 to this. It's the same basic thing, but you get to the
same basic
thing. So you're
thing.
talking about.
So you are forcing the kids into that small prison.
Okay, so now our task is to talk about creating more humanizing.
Yes.
So you're saying it's somewhat dehumanizing to have them just have tunnel.
Right.
So how are we going to make it more expansive in such a way that Johnny, who learns better by hearing, and Al, who learns better by listening, well, that's the same thing, but by seeing, and someone else learns better by doing, how are you going to be able to integrate all of those, which I think any good teacher would do automatically.
And disconnected from the community.
Right, they need to be the ones who are here.
Especially when they're not from here, it makes it difficult.
Yeah, it's almost like how we talk about the
assimilate.
police. If they're not from around here,
Oh, forget about it.
This is
Those are
gonna
the
be
worst
chaos.
police officers. And that's what we talking to friends of mine that are police officers. The problem is the police
but
officers that
it's the
aren't from
same with the
Paterson.
teachers.
Yeah.
Same thing. If they're not connected, it's just I'm just coming to get my paycheck. So as long as the people are behaving so that I can get out at 2:30, 3:30, whatever the time is, that's all they're focused on. And they're going to keep focusing on that if the leadership is not there telling them this is how you're going to be evaluated and you need to do these important things.
Professional development. I knew it needed professional development, but I can't. That
I just like that check that you mentioned on there too.
We need to add
an example. This is a what evaluation? Your teacher is a check, like the same way that they do check.
social work is doing 8-week plan. You know what I'm saying?
On their bias.
They
What is
use
it
the word
called?
reflect. I would say check our own biases, prejudices, stereotypes. What's important also is developing parent relationships. The educators developing a relationship with them. I'm not even gonna say parents because our communities, the family structure is broken. So developing partnerships with the family.
Right.
We need educators like that, and usually an educator that's gonna be like KK described is gonna be that type of educator because they care, so they're gonna develop. They're gonna take that initiative
To develop a relationship with the grandmother.
Whether who's involved,
Right.
you know what I'm saying?
uncles, whatever.
That cannot go without being said. You know what I'm saying? And in terms of the curriculum, also it's like I think a pluralistic view, not just Afrocentric, but a pluralistic.
Right.
So that means every segment of humanity, whether it be from Asian culture, European culture, African culture, they all can see where they were or what they contributed to whatever the subject is.
Right. But by this point, they don't even have to be intentional lies. It's because we've been learning them so long in this country, we're teaching the lies as if it were true. You know, so we need to inject the truth into our educational system. And like Chris is saying, it's not only about teaching African history or about the contributions of Black people, but it's about the Arab contributions. It's about to math and geometry and astrology.
Philosophy.
It could be Greek. It could be some stuff. Even though, I mean, we need to also teach how those folks got there.
They got it from us. They got it from us.
We need to talk about kinetic information
Yes.
that all the folks have studied from.
Right.
But all of this is just the truth. There's no bias. It's not to say that one is better than the other. It's to say that this is the actual truth. And then when you start teaching the truth, I think you bring the humanity back in everything.
Amen.
I agree with that. I think too many people don't know the history of internment camps and things like that, for example, and that's how in 2017 we see lots of repetitions from when America was great occurring, this weekend. That's a big problem. I think people don't understand that it is possible, has been possible in this country for internment camps to exist, for people to have laws passed against their existence, and we need to be mindful of how that turned out so that we aren't able to willfully repeat those kinds of things. And we don't know. They walk into it, people are walking into it like it's a new and different experience when it's really not.
The urban schools and suburban schools. And so it's curriculum or content that they feel every student should master by the time they get to a certain point. Like fourth grade, all the things you should have mastered from even kindergarten through third and fourth, you should be able to know that content in math, reading, science. I think those are 3 areas they test more than anything else.
Can I ask you one question? They gave me a book. I read it like twice now. Carter G. Woodson.
Yes.
And there was a chapter in there, We Lost the Vision. And in one of the paragraphs, he said, the curriculum that they're offering to our children is not building them, it's decreasing the ability to want to learn. I don't know if you ever read that book.
Miseducation?
Yeah. Listen. So, if the federal government is bringing the part and the state is using the SATs to get you in college, it's from their point of view and not the point of view of you achieving who you are. You're achieving what they want you to be. Or what they assume you can be.
I don't know how many of us African Americans are part of developing these tests. So there's a certain bias in them, inherent bias in them, but we have to learn to be able to take these tests and do well. Now, I don't think it's out of our realm to be able to do well on the SATs, except if you're in a local school district that is not preparing you.
in all areas of the subject matter and curriculum, knowing it in depth. And that's what I have a problem with. Like, students will see a question here, and then they'll turn the math question around, and then now they're lost because it wasn't presented the way they learned it. That means they did not learn the concept in depth. And that's what I have a problem with all the testing, but it's taking away from teachers' ability, because one, we don't have the time to teach every subject in the depth that it should be taught.
You got me in touch with?
And from first grade beyond, because it begins in kindergarten, first grade. The students begin to read now, not like when I was in school in the 1950s. When you come to first grade, you should be a reader already.
That's from home.
From
home,
from
right.
pre-K and K. You should be a reader in order to do well in the content of first grade. You know. And I don't have any problems with raising the standards. You talked about when you were in school 6, like we didn't have maybe all this testing. And also the state has raised the standards because the standards were a lot lower. But it shouldn't matter if we are teaching the concepts for the building blocks for the student to move on.
It was interesting. So that, you know, like,
So take it easy now, Chief is telling us what he set up, and I'm suggesting that it needs to come from the other side, that the district needs to figure out ways to involve parents. Where the district is proactive, using your model, but saying, and I put down school hall meetings, not town hall meetings, but school hall meetings that are routine, where parents come to just talk about what's happening in the school. Maybe the Board of Ed would be there, maybe just maybe superintendents or whomever, but it's for the parents as opposed to this being a meeting of the.
But you know, Gianna, you know, I emphasize something like right now, like I'm doing some like workshop for Board of Ed, you know, parent workshop, and it's based on like for the last 10 years or so, the telephone calls from parents to me are, Mr. Moody, how can I help their how-to call? So like these workshops that board will be doing, setting a workshop, how-to workshop, because the parents are ready because they keep asking questions. So how-to, you know, and then we, you know, this should be going on in every school, and they're bringing them out because they want to know different. The parents need to know what they need to do, how they. This is how-to. So I mean, and follow up with that, maybe we need to expand that on schools. They're doing some of that now. Some of the schools they have for the workshop, but it's parenting workshop, but it's the how-to workshop.
Okay. So with the school hall meeting, it could also include how-to. You can't make out any of this. How-to workshops. And I think for the students, the same thing should happen. There should be at least 2 things that the school does per year that's just unwinding for students. It's not necessarily a dance, it's not necessarily Black History Month, but it's student appreciation.
This is awesome.
That would like to go first, give you a couple minutes to wrap it up, or a minute to wrap it up.
If you can summarize Chris's point into one of these,
Which one?
I like that second one. It's really good.
Teacher expectation, and then short version of that. Okay. Teacher expectation and leadership.
You want to go first? We're gonna have.
Okay, the first thing we think that needs to be done to make bring more humanity or humanize into the schools and classrooms is to instill more room for self-expression. This is by the students. Self-expression and creativity, which can be done by bringing in more arts, music, and humanities. The second is to involve students in the learning process. So often students are told, you have to do it this way, you can't do it any other kind of way. It sort of leads into the expression piece, but we want to have a very active role from the students to validate their input and make them feel proud of what they do. Give student appreciation events, not just Black History Month, not just, a particular month, but have structured student appreciation events. Involve and uplift parents through validation of their importance. Parents so often come in only when there's an issue, and sometimes they don't show up probably because they may feel that they don't have anything to offer, that they're not important, they haven't been doing what they should have been doing with their children, at least that's what they feel. So we want them to feel that they are important, and you do that through validating or saying, understanding that they have difficulty, that they have X number of children, whatever. Be proactive and send messages, positive messages home with little Johnny. Not just the message that says he was acting up, he was throwing, do they still throw spitballs? That was in my day.
They do.
So send positive messages that say, today was a good day, smiley face, something that Johnny did, especially if Johnny has been a child who's been challenging. And then hold school hall meetings and include how-to workshops. So you're having a meeting that's just for the purpose of parents getting out, but they're going to have questions. So have some how-to workshops, how to get in touch with the district, how to call the teacher, how to do this, how to report a problem, how to communicate that Johnny has asthma or whatever. How-to workshops and town hall meetings.
Thank you.
I think I need to put this.
Students and teachers should study and have knowledge of African and African American history. We felt this was important in the world that we live in, because if each culture knows the history of the other, there would perhaps be more understanding and empathy of that culture. For example, the police who walk in the urban areas, they don't know anything about us, and it creates fear and sometimes violence in a case where you don't know what this person is about, so you're trying to protect yourself. And also in a capitalist society, we have these CEOs of all these companies and banks who have no experience with the Black community or the African people. And their decisions are based on racism, institutionalized, white supremacy, institutionalized institutions that elevate them up here and to keep us down there. So everybody should have knowledge and respect for everybody else's culture. Number two, that would filter down into our schools. We said our children should come to school with knowledge and respect and love and trust for each other in their social interactions with one another. A lot of times we have to teach that in kindergarten and first grade. They have to have respect for their teachers and also other adults in the school environment. And the same thing, it should reciprocate on the teacher's part of having respect for that student, their cultural background, their economics, whatever. Don't place judgment and don't place your values on them. And from the student's perspective, we have a student here who's going to enter high school soon. Yes. And she says the school should be a more organized setting in both the school and the classroom. And that could be, disorganization can come from several aspects of school, including behaviors and a lot of the policies that help students or have students become fearful of what's going to happen to them on a day-to-day basis. And the curriculum, she felt, is very challenging, almost too challenging at this point, I assume, with all the testing. And so we need to look at the curriculum and how we can develop students in steps from this content area to the next, to the next, to the next, as they move up in levels in school.
Thank you.
Thank you. We have three that we think that might work well. One, we said leadership is imperative to changing systemic racism and the teacher's tendency to maintain racism, white supremacy. Applying truth to education will help bring back humanity. And here we're talking about some of the things we heard already. You're saying that we need to learn more about all cultures and learn that those are important things for us to discuss and be aware of in our society. And here we say, create a place of respect and education for meditation and reflection of a higher power. We were talking about how there was a time in education where people could pray or meditate or reflect on something bigger than they were, and we no longer have that in school. That's our three.
So Marcella's going to take pictures of all the chart paper and then also type up all the notes so that you all get it, and they're going to be categorized based on the questions, okay? The idea is that this conversation doesn't stop here. It moves on to whatever, there's some great things that happened or some great things that came out of that hopefully push your community, your schools in a direction that you would like to see it, right? So this came from you all. These are all your thoughts and your ideas. And then maybe the next thing would be to, your next meeting is to say, I'm gonna bring another person with me, I'm gonna bring another parent, I'm gonna bring another student, and then to build on this conversation. We're gonna do a quick check-in, check-out. I think just to kind of highlight some of the things that came out of this conversation is the importance of reaffirming and building up our own community. I'm seeing like that was a common theme. Building up our individual children, our students, our community, so that we can overcome the system in which has been set up against us. As we're going to be checking out, I want us to just kind of think of one word that captures what you're feeling right now today at the end of the session. So just think of one word and we'll just kind of go around.
Should I start? I'm going to say a beginning.
Challenged.
Kazi means work.
Hope.
Hopeful. Evolving.
Wisdom. Grateful.
Prayers.
Elated.
What?
Elated.
Hopeful.
Inspired.
Processing.
You don't want to
You want to
add
add a word?
A word.
In the beginning.
Video.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody. As I mentioned, we're going to take this and build upon it. The conversations that happened were great. Before we even leave, if there's anybody that wants to add, if they're doing their own personal organizing work, that you have something coming up that you would like to talk about and maybe invite people to before we leave.
Well, I would just say that New Family had a session immediately prior to this and sort of overlapping. We had this and then we had this one and we had our earlier session. And one of the things on our agenda, of course, is education. So some of the things we talked about here, we talked about there, but certainly there's an opportunity to build upon what we did. I'd like to extend an invitation to those of you who did not participate in the earlier session to please consider coming out, especially young people. That is something that has been missing in our meetings, and we oftentimes are talking about young people and we don't have the young people there. So we would like for you all to come out. We'll get your information that's going to be shared, sign in, and we will be extending an invitation to you.
We're going to be extending the invitation to New Family for our planning meeting for second annual Family Day Arts Festival, and a Black Business Bazaar, the Black Business Bazaar Expo that's going to take place in November the 30th. Going for that. And a couple of educators in the city of Paterson, myself, will be trying to organize a program for youth who are interested in STEM fields. We're some colleagues some alumni from Rutgers University, where I graduated from, are uniting with me to design this program. What we want to do is create like a scholarship program for those interested in those fields. If anybody is interested in being a volunteer, a mentor, a partner in this, just let me know.
I hate to monopolize, but again, in the meeting that we had immediately prior to this, and you came in for some of it, Chris, and most of the people around this circle were at that meeting, or if they were not there, their spirit was there. But one of our charges is building leaders, and that's a suggestion that came from Kevin McDaniel, so I would hope that he would work in some way, because you talk about scholarships and we're talking about adopting. So that would run hand in hand with what you're doing.
That leadership piece is important for us.
Those of you that walked in, we did one word checkout. So, and then after that, we can kind of, unless anyone else wants to add.
I just wanted to say that I hope that we have the opportunity to do this again, because one of the things that I hope to pull from this is that we have a document of input from the community, so that when we, the district is elaborating on, community stakeholder engagement and stuff, they're oftentimes complaining that they don't get that. They're saying they don't hear from the community. So this is one way that I'm envisioning, if it grows and gets bigger, that we can have some information to offer them, like, here's some of the issues that they're concerned with. Here's some of the things that they want to see in the school, and this came from the community. So that's the end goal of these World Cafes, and I'm hoping that we can do them again. I don't know if I can ever do them as good as Okaga does them. Okaga's really good.
It's simple, please.
Okaga's really good, but maybe Miss Danny, our Queen, you guys could help too, because I don't know if this is really my thing, but I would like for us to have these opportunities again, so we can get more input and have more to offer the district, in saying the community does have a voice and they do have opinions, and here they are.
I'd like to emphasize community also meaning parents, because what's lacking in a lot of these initiatives and these committees from the Board of Education, parents aren't there. They're not seated at the table, which Marcella and I have been fighting about for the committee that we're on now, for Every Student Succeeds Act. That's going to determine what curriculum is in the schools, what schools get funding for what. We need parents to be involved.
I will echo students too.
And students,
Yeah.
I just figured I would, I'm sorry.
No, I was saying we echo also students. Because the students have a voice in this, the learning should be centered on them.
I figured I would steal this opportunity to invite everybody to the upcoming Kwanzaa week. That's going to be happening, and the planning is going to be starting very soon, and we want everybody to be involved. So, brothers and sisters from outside of Paterson are definitely welcome to support what we're doing. Bring folks with you. We had folks from a different state that came last time because she saw it on Facebook. Brought her children, so we want to continue that, and look for us. Don't wait for us to say, hey, we want you to support by such and such. You can call and say, what can I do? So that's definitely coming up. We would love to have you participate in that, so we can get more people on board with what we're trying to do. And this is how we probably got a lot of the folks even here. So let's keep that focal point continuing on in Paterson. The Kwanzaa week in Paterson, we're going to do that again for New Family.
And it's the only, it's the only city in the nation,
to my knowledge,
that does
a whole full week, and consistently, year after year, and at several different locations throughout the city, bringing everybody together, trying to be there for different people who can't make it to a different part of the city, older folks who have challenges for mobility and whatnot. We try to make it to them, and it's free. People come out. We have things that we give away. I think it's wonderful, and as you see, I think we got a lot of the folks who have come out to this event because of what we started with New Family Foundation and the Quanti event.
So we'll take one word check out, just kind of capturing how you're feeling right now after the conversation. So one word check out from one word.
Yeah, Queen and Brother Atif.
Oh, those two. Okay.
So that's for you, Brother Atif and Queen, because you guys weren't here when we did that. One word to describe your feelings right now.
Good word. Achieve.
No, achieve. Achieve.
We need to achieve something.
Queen.
Optimistic.
It's good.
So we're about to leave. I'm going to ask that those of you that brought up your different organizing events, can you also maybe forward it to Marcella and maybe she can send it out on the email, or I don't know how, so that everyone will have the list of the different events and the contact information. So, and this is the way we organize. This is the way we kind of help build our communities, by doing this kind of stuff together with each other. All right. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
So this is the village.